Hi everyone. I'm unfashionably early, which is so unlike me, but I've actually been really excited about this all day. So I'm here like 30 seconds early. And I can see that 105 of you are also here 30 seconds early. So thanks, guys. I am just going to talk to myself for probably a couple of minutes before I start because not everyone is so timely. I'm very excited for this. If you're here, just say hi. Hi, Lisa. I won't do that really annoying, quite Americanized webinar thing where I just tell people to write in the chat for absolutely no reason. Hey, has anyone heard of the word mindset? Just put an M in the chat if you have. Don't worry, it's not going to be like that. Although, hi Mercedes, I am very excited to see you tomorrow. And I'm actually really excited for this. I'm weirdly a little bit nervous, not really sure why now. Amy will be here. She's stuck in traffic. Right, Amy. No, actually, do you know what? If you're stuck in traffic, please take your time and arrive safely. I'm still going to just chat for like a couple of minutes. And can I just say thanks, people, for being here, because I know everyone has a busy life, but 156 of you are here already, and that's pretty fucking cool. Let me get up my notes. Also, this is a little bit different. Like, I don't normally talk about this stuff. Actually, that's a complete lie. I do, but not in such a succinct. Let's see if this is succinct. Way. Right, let me see where we are. Emily, I love you so much. And yeah, you're just the best. Commit to 6 genuinely just wouldn't be the same without you. Okay, right. And if anyone's here and it's like, do you know what? Wait, why is Jill not hearing anything? Is that a me problem or a Jill problem? Could someone, can you hear me? Emily, tell me, can you hear me? Yes, Jill, Emma. So, okay, it's a Jill problem. Fine. Sarah, hello from Germany. Hello! Jill, sort out your problem and then I'll get started. Okay, most of you can hear me, so that's actually good enough for me. Right, I'm going to get started. So, welcome to the Mindset Shift. Thank you all very much for being here and for your time and for your attention. I promise I will make this worth it. I know a lot of you are starting Commit to 6 on Monday. I know a lot of you are on Committed. I know that there are quite a lot of coaches here as well. So this will be applicable whether it's for you personally, whether it's for your clients, whether it's a professional goal or a business goal or a life goal or just like a fuck average goal, which I hope everybody here has. The Mindset Shift is a course that I've been writing over the last couple of months and kind of brings together like 10 years of coaching, because I have been coaching for over 10 years. And by far the most impactful part has always been how the diet and exercise actually translates to other areas of your life, and more of this like mindset shift and how you start viewing things differently and how that actually improves your relationships and your work life and just generally like how much you're enjoying your life. So that's kind of what today is about. But now I finally brought it all together in a way that we can actually work on it. So if you think like how impactful that's been for so many people without really having a focus on it and it almost just being a byproduct, now we're going to put more of a clear focus on it. So to be clear and just to kind of set expectations, this will touch a little bit on diet and exercise, and I am going to do a Q&A at the end. So any questions that you have about anything, about what I've been speaking about, but also about anything diet and exercise related, save that for the end, put it in the chat, and I'll scroll back through and I'll come back to it. But this is really going to be about the mindset changes as opposed to the physical changes, because what tends to happen is your mindset changes precede your physical changes, especially when you want to maintain your results. And that's what we built Commit to 6 about, is like, this isn't just another diet. This isn't just another fat loss phase. This is change for life so that you're not continuously yo-yo dieting. Okay, so you are here to build your most important muscle, which is your mindset. And that's probably how cheesy it will remain for the rest of the presentation. Okay, so what will you expect from today, or what can you expect from today? There's going to be about 30-minute talk, depending on how much I riff and go off on things. We are specifically going to focus reshifting your mindset. That obviously I've written a whole course on this now, but we're specifically going to focus today on procrastination, because you can't get started if you're procrastinating. And then a bit on life balance, or why I don't really like the term life balance, and how to create life synergy instead. And then we will, of course, be talking about not being average and how to get the most out of your life. Then I'm going to do a Q&A. So as I said, anything that pops up in your head, anything you've always wondered about, anything that, you know, you maybe have asked me on Instagram, but I've not been able to give like a long enough answer that's actually helped you, or specifics or anything. This is the place, and I will stick around to answer as many of those as I possibly can. Okay, so the first part of this, as I said, we're going to go through kind of 3 stages. Procrastination, because if you're procrastinating, then you won't actually get started. Life balance. A lot of people have limiting beliefs around life balance and what they can and can't achieve. And it's quite easy to fall into a bit of a victim mentality feeling, and as if like life is happening to you rather than you being in control of your life and being able to live it to the absolute fullest, which will then lead us nicely into refusing to be average, which a lot of the committed people have helped me with. So you will see where I'm going with that very shortly. So before we start, and I've just done a big introduction. Before we start, after the introduction, before we actually start, why should we focus on mindset? And the reason for this is that most people are absolutely capable of achieving their goals, right? Whether that's like starting a business, whether that's getting in shape. And the reason I say this is because most people I work with, sure, they might have big ambitious goals of like building $1 billion business, right? But most people, at least their initial goal is like, I want to make enough money doing this that I can live and support myself and support my family and have the freedom that I want. Cool. I cannot like emphasize this enough. Everybody is capable of that. Much like with the fat loss side, most people aren't coming to me being like, I want to win the Olympia. Because to be quite honest, not anybody can do that, right? Much like not anybody is going to be able to build $1 billion business. But if you want to get in shape, feel better about yourself, be in a healthy BMI range, everybody is completely capable of that. So then it's not a capability problem, it's a mindset problem. And this is why we're focusing on mindset today. The other thing I'll say about mindset, and I think this is a bit of a limiting belief as well, is that some people kind of feel like it's, or have a perception that it's innate. So most people don't just magically wake up with this positive can-do attitude. They weren't born with it. They have to build it, much like you would build any muscle. And it takes work, and it takes consistent, focused effort, because it won't happen by accident. And like I said, it's easy to think that people are just like happy, positive people, and they're just really lucky. And in fact, I'll tell you my own story here. I'm not a naturally positive person. And what I will say is that isn't a character flaw, because most people aren't. And it's kind of in our DNA not to be. So it's an evolutionary drive to be quite focused on negatives. And our minds tend to look for negatives. They look for danger. And I used to be quite reactive, which is quite a common like ADHD trait. I didn't really think about my responses. I just kind of like reacted to stuff. Like people find this quite hard to believe now, but I was like quite hot-headed and like not particularly like, I wouldn't say I was like a horrible person or anything, but I was just like quite argumentative and hot-headed, and I even used to get into fights at school. Like that's, I know I'm embarrassed about that now, but like that's the truth of it. And what I noticed is it wasn't a trait that I liked about myself. And it didn't serve me well at all in relationships, in work, in that, like in any dynamic, right? So I consciously worked on changing it. Now, I am by no means perfect, but most people would describe me as quite calm, relaxed, thoughtful, not particularly reactive or argumentative, depending on what I have my things that I do pick arguments with, but like most of them are like quite conscious decisions, right? And people would definitely describe me as generally quite a positive person. And I got this tattoo that's on my forearm to remind me to surf the urge, to respond and not react. Also, that emotions will come and go like a wave, whether you act on them or not. I think that's a really big realization for a lot of people. Whether it's an emotion, whether it's like an urge to eat something or say something, actually, if you just sit with that, you notice that it's a wave and it like comes over you and you're like, oh, I really want to eat that thing, or I really want to say that thing to that person. And if you just sit with it and you wait until the next day, or even you just wait 5 minutes, you notice that then you can make a conscious choice about whether you want to do that or not. And the strength of that urge dissipates like a wave. It's also a rainbow because I'm gay, and I don't want to forget that I'm gay. So it's a reminder for that as well. My point of this really being that if you don't like something, if you don't like a character trait about yourself, don't get stuck in a fixed mindset thinking that's just who you are. It's one of the reasons that I don't really like labels. Like, you might identify or label yourself as like quite an avoidant person, or as a perfectionist. That comes up a lot. And then you almost like give up your ability to change. Oh, I'm a perfectionist, so I would never be able to do that. Or like you use it as an excuse. And this is slightly unpopular opinion, but I also don't like how some people view things like their ADHD diagnosis, because sometimes it causes quite a fixed mindset, right? Some people get a diagnosis and it really helps them understand themselves. And then other people might get a diagnosis and they almost use it as an excuse for the behaviors and then make no effort to change that. Like, well, it's not my fault. I have ADHD. I'm just a reactive person. Like, no, like you have that tendency. So now we need to work on how we manage that and how we change it. And like each their own. If you want to just accept those things about yourself, fine. But in my opinion, fuck that. Life is too short. If you don't like it, if it's holding you back, if you have the ability to change it, then change it. And that goes for your mindset, for your body, for your relationships, for your career, like all of it. And that's what I really want you to leave with today. So the first thing you need to do is to stop putting off starting, which is something that so many people do. Most of us are pretty good at procrastinating, whether it's an obvious thing or whether it's something that's a little bit more subconscious. But when you take a step back, you're like, okay, yeah, pretty professional level procrastinator. And just a few reminders, like there is never going to be a perfect time. It's not going to be easier to start later. And in fact, it will almost definitely be harder the longer that you leave something. And the reason that you should start now is that you deserve to feel your best. One of the scariest realizations that I've had about procrastination generally, and I can't remember, it might have been in that book that's called The Number of Weeks That You Have to Live, for 40,000 weeks. I actually can't remember. Some amount of weeks. But it was the realization that there isn't a deadline for the most important things. And that was quite scary. So it might be something like finally starting that business that you always wanted to start. It might be something like seeing your parents more. Like, oh, I should really see my parents more. And you always say that, but you never do. And then at some point, like, this is morbid, but it will become too late to do that. It might be starting to exercise. It might be prioritizing a relationship. It might be making changes to your diet to lose the excess weight that you've been gaining, or booking that trip that you've always wanted to go on, but you always tell yourself that you're too busy to do. Nobody is going to come and tell you that you have to do it now. And as a result, it never feels like the right time. And there's always a reason to put it off. And we're all susceptible to this. But actually, like, realizing that and identifying your priorities and identifying your values and how you want to live your life, and then frequently checking in with them, will make you less and less likely to be doing this kind of thing, which isn't a coincidence, is exactly how we start the mindset shift course, by identifying your values. I also wrote down a few things, like a few of the key reasons. I was really like, why do people procrastinate? Or like, let's be honest, like, why do I procrastinate? Because most people are going to resonate with most of these things. And if there's anything I haven't put in this list, like, write them in the comments. I'd love to hear if there's like things you think that I've missed. But one of the key reasons is that you procrastinate because you've convinced yourself that it's going to be harder than it is. And we see this a lot with people coming to Commit to Six, or people that are trying diets and then have yo-yo dieted for years. Often you're setting yourself up for failure because you're trying to be quote unquote perfect, or you're trying to stick to a really like hard diet. And it doesn't need to be that hard. And even on a smaller level, like I'm sure people, like if you ever put off something and then when you do it, you're like, oh my God, why did I spend months dreading that? It really wasn't that bad. And actually, I kind of tortured myself for months by putting it off when I should have just done the thing. You know, most things that you put off are only going to get harder. And often they're not as hard as what you've made up in your head. The other reason that you procrastinate is because you've convinced yourself that there's going to be a better time to do it. An absolute classic. That time seems to never materialize. One of the core reasons that you procrastinate is because you're trying to keep yourself safe. You're trying to avoid judgment. You're trying to avoid failure, rejection, uncertainty. You procrastinate because you believe that the discomfort of change is going to be worse than staying where you are, which it rarely is. I think most people avoid change more because we're, again, like predisposed to stay to something that's like quite certain and we're sure of. That's where we see safety. But it's rarely as like actually change can be such a good thing, usually is. And then this is quite a big one. So you procrastinate because you're scared of failing, and mostly because of how you feel when you fail. This was quite like a realization to me recently. I think this is quite interesting because a lot of the time when people say they're scared of failing, people try to practically talk them out of it. So they're like, oh, well, you know, if you started that business and it didn't work out, well, like you've not got a business now and you still wouldn't have a business, so you've literally got nothing to lose. And what people don't really realize, or like don't have like the depth to think about, is that it's got nothing to do with the practicalities of failing. Like, sure, I have nothing and I end with nothing. Who cares? Same with like trying another diet. It's like, what do you have to lose? Nothing, apart from how you will feel if you fail. That is what you're scared of. Always. Even if you're thinking about it, like, I don't know, if you're asking somebody out, right? And realistically, you've got nothing to lose. You're like, oh, I really fancy that person. I'm going to walk over and ask them out. Now, you're in a position where they're already not going out with you because you haven't asked them out. So really, you have nothing to lose. You're going to ask them. They're going to say yes, great. Or they're going to say no, and you're in exactly the same position. But you're not. You're not in the same position because it's how you will feel if you fail or if they reject you, right? So it's more the feeling of the rejection or the failure and how you think you will feel about yourself, and then how that's going to impact you. That's what you're scared of. And that realization is actually quite, I don't know, it was quite like a epiphany, if I maybe not quite an epiphany, but it was like a big like, yeah, that's actually what it is. Classic reason that you procrastinate because you believe that it will be easier to do tomorrow, or that there'll always be a tomorrow, which is scary because there won't always be a tomorrow, right? And I think often people procrastinate and then they say things like, oh, I wish I'd started earlier. And it's like, right, but you're literally still putting it off, saying that you wish you started earlier. Like the earliest you can possibly start is right now, because the perfect time isn't coming and it's not going to be easier tomorrow. And the longer you put something off, the more that you risk never actually doing it. So my advice would be to start leaning into imperfect action. Obviously, that's our thing on Commit to Six. And then realize how much better you feel about yourself, how much more in control you are, how much less anxiety that you have. And that's a huge one. I think people like feel a lot of anxiety and they don't realize that taking action is the ultimate antidote to feeling anxious. Always. It's very hard to feel anxious while you're taking action. Get too busy taking action that you stop overthinking things, that you stop becoming very anxious about things. By the way, I'm talking about the feeling of being anxious, not like clinically diagnosed anxiety. And I realized there's much more to that than just being like, just take some action. Right? So I'm certainly not saying that. But you'll also realize how much more productive you are, how much more positive you are, how much better you feel about yourself. And really, usually, like how it actually wasn't as hard as what you thought it was going to be. And that's the feedback we get a lot on Commit to Six. It's like, when you've got the right support when you've got people showing you exactly where to focus your efforts and supporting you to do so and taking the pressure off, then actually the process is a hell of a lot easier and more enjoyable than trying to do it on your own and then like second guessing yourself all the time. Coming up next, I hope that like you guys will enjoy this. If you don't, this isn't for you, and that's fine. I realize I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but this stuff kind of like scares me, but also like gets me a bit motivated. And this is probably my favorite quote about, oh no, wait, that's not what's next. Right, okay. My favorite quote's coming up, but this isn't my favorite quote, but it's kind of what a lot of Stoicism is based around, really. So I don't say like you're going to die to be morbid or dark, but more to give like clarity, perspective, and inspiration. And it's to make you realize that a lot of what you worry about and a lot of what holds you back is just so irrelevant. Like, imagine not following your dreams because you're worried about someone on Instagram or someone on Facebook that you went to school with 10 years ago, and they might think it's funny that you're posting something about something, or what your colleagues think, even though you don't even get on with them or like them, and they don't have lives that you particularly aspire to anyway. Like, who gives a shit about those people? But those people are your perception of what they're thinking. And this is the weirdest thing, is often they aren't even thinking that, and they aren't looking at you, and they aren't judging you, but you think that they might be. And that's what's stopping you live your life. Like, what is stopping you live your life is some random girl from 10 years ago that you went to school with that was a bit of a bully at school, that has probably also grown up, probably doesn't give a shit what you're doing, probably isn't judging you, but you're letting their potential judgment hold you back from doing things. So I try and always be fueled by how pissed off I will be when I look back when I'm like 60, 70, 80, and just thinking like, oh, I wish I did that thing, but I was scared because I thought like some random person was judging me. Use regret, because honestly, regret is in my opinion, the worst feeling in the world. Use regret, or the potential of regret, as motivation to just do the stuff. And this is my favorite quote. I'll talk you through this graph first. So this is the memento mori chart, which is Latin for remember you must die. Again, sorry about like being quite morbid with this, but I think it's just like that realization often helps people like live in the moment. And each of these little dots, this is one for me, by the way. I was gonna wait, how old am I? 33, right? So this is one for me. Yeah, no, I did do that right. And all of these little dots represent weeks. So it's a reminder of how precious your life is, and to live with intent and not waste it, and how valuable your time is. And if you're looking at this and you're like, you know, I know we've got people signing up to Commit 6 now. One of them is 69. One of them's going to be, was it 70? Anyway, we've got like 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds on Commit 6, and they are absolute legends. And if you're thinking, oh, well, I've not got as many of those left anymore, I can guarantee you can live more life in 1 year if you're intentional, if you embrace the fuck average mentality, if you stop holding yourself back, than you can in 10 years. So don't think that like just because you've technically got less dots, it's like how you make those dots count rather than the amount that you have. And this quote is just a bit of a reminder from Ryan Holiday, one of his books. I can't actually remember which one. I'm sure someone will be able to tell me, because that's right. It was 4,000 weeks. Thank you to whoever told me that. And he says, to procrastinate is to be entitled. It is arrogant. It assumes that you will have discipline to get it done later, despite the fact that you don't have discipline to get it done now. And that's the part I love, is like the little cheeky tough love at the end of like, oh, you think you're going to be disciplined to do that later, but you're not now. That's interesting. Like, you're probably not, right? And these reminders just like, they really help me, and they inspire me. So I hope that you find them useful. And really, a lot of what they do is like inspire me to find joy in the everyday and take risks, because I honestly think the biggest risk is not taking a risk. Like, the biggest risk is living a life that you didn't really want to live, or, you know, staying in a body that you don't enjoy living in, or not making changes because you're worried about what other people will think. Like, it's much better to try something and it not work out than to live a sheltered life and waste it away. this is just a reminder from me. No one made any progress by waiting. And a bit of a bitter pill to swallow is that most people never achieve their goals because instead of doing something to achieve them, they put it off till tomorrow continuously, and then tomorrow never actually comes. And most people are overthinking and underacting. And this is one of our biggest things about imperfect action, whether it's when I'm talking to coaches about building their businesses and they're trying to make everything perfect before they even start. I've been doing Commit to Six for I want to say 6 years, but anyway, it's 5 or 6 years now. I think I change it every single round, like every single round. I just like something can be improved. Like I'll add something, I'll maybe change something, I'll take it away. Technology changes. Like if I waited for it to be perfect, I still wouldn't have launched it now. Like you cannot wait for it to be perfect. And actually, the only way you get anywhere near perfect is to do stuff, is to take feedback, is to improve on things. So you need to start with that like imperfect action. I just quite like this quote. It doesn't actually really fit with the presentation, but asking for help isn't giving up. It's refusing to give up. I actually think that was something Ryan Holiday said as well. But I quite like that. And if you want to join Commit to Six, you should join. Okay. What I want to talk about now is why I don't like life balance, basically, and why it's never resonated with me. And it's always, if I'm being totally honest, feels like something that's often said to people to kind of keep them small. And it's often said, like, to me, it would be like, you know, you shouldn't work too hard because life balance, which often translates into the success that you have or the way that you're spending your life has made me feel bad about my life choices or my current situation. So I'm going to project that back onto you. That's often what people are kind of saying when they're like telling you more and more about life balance. And remember that it's your life it should be based on your values, how you want to live your life and what's important to you, not somebody else's. And this is why I much prefer the life synergy approach rather than life balance, because I truly believe that like if you live in line with your values, you really can like have it all. And this is a much better frame than life balance, because the definition of synergy is that it adds something, right? Synergy adds. Balance is always about taking from one side to balance out another side so that you can get to this like perfect equilibrium, which is so hard to actually define and actually achieve. That's not really what I want. What I want is synergy, so that the parts of my life come together to make each part better. And I actually think that's a more realistic way to think about it. And this challenges people's belief that like they can't have it all, or they have to sacrifice from one part to then give to another part. And even when you're talking to people about like fat loss, there's often this like perception that if they take more time to exercise, for example, that has to take from another area of their life. Like, I don't believe that at all. Actually, when you spend time exercising, you're filling your cup. You know, if you get the right dose of exercise, you will have more energy, more creativity, more productivity. And in that sense, it's not balance, it's synergy, right? Like, because you're adding something in, it's going to make the two parts are now going to be better than the part on its own. So the main thing that I want you to get from this is to challenge that voice in your head that tells you that everything is competing against each other for your time and for your energy, because it's not. And you see it in a different way, where everything is kind of slotting together to allow you to perform at your best in numerous areas of your life. So as I said, exercise will make you more productive. A happy relationship will make you more successful at work. A thriving career where you feel valued will improve your home life as well. Like, when done right, all of these things fit together. And actually, when you're trying to balance them all, that becomes like a stress in itself. So you need to think of it more as, these are all positives that I get to do so that I can show up at my best. And that's why I want you to think about like synergy and not balance. What did I want to say on this slide? Okay, this was more about how to create life synergy now that you're all hopefully bought into the concept. You have to start with knowing what's most important to you, because everyone's quote unquote life synergy is going to look slightly different. Most people I'd say most people just haven't like really considered their values before. I certainly hadn't until a couple of years ago. And most people who have potentially haven't done it with quite the right intent. This is what we cover in the first lesson on the mindset shift. But just briefly, the first step is to identify your values. So in other words, just what's most important to you. Note here that for a lot of people, what's urgent will come up as opposed to what's actually important. And we're quite bad at prioritizing the urgent thing as opposed to the important thing. The other thing that comes up a lot is that people often pick their values based on what they think other people think that they should pick, or even like sometimes it's like self-judgment. But what's really important is that you're really honest with this. Like you might be worried that others will judge you, but you don't have to tell anyone your values. Or you might kind of be worried that you're going to judge yourself. But it's really important to be honest with these, because then we're going to assess how close in line you're living with those values. Now, if it's actually not an important value to you, and then we set goals to help you live more in line with it, that's going to not be the direction that we want to take. And I'm sure he won't, actually, I won't even name him, but I had an old business partner who we did some values work together, and he didn't have family in his top ones. And most people do. And I was just like, that's interesting. Like, you don't have family. And he's like, well, it isn't a priority to me at the moment. Like, I live abroad. I didn't see my family that much. Like I don't live in a way that it's a priority, and it's not a priority. Like, it's not one of the most important things to me at the moment. And if that is the case, then like it's important to kind of say that. And like I said, no one's judging you because you don't have to tell anyone of these. Then you're going to rate your values based on how in line you are with them. So I've got a specific way of doing this. And if you're being honest, most people won't really be living fully in line with them. If you are, then like, look, you're already perfect, so you don't need me. But most people are like, I could be doing some work to live more in line with that value. I'm getting too distracted by this thing. And then the next step is you're going to identify the changes that you need to make in order to live more in line with those values. And we're going to set realistic and tangible targets based off those, which, as I said, is exactly what we'll be doing in the first lesson of the 6 weeks. I couldn't talk about this stuff without talking about a fuck average mindset, which is kind of about like not settling for social norms and wanting more from life, and not accepting things like the common narrative that life just goes downhill after 40 or after menopause. It's more about saying life is too short to have a mediocre life. And we all know the stats, if you're anyone who's followed any of my content, but most people gain weight as they age, most people lose muscle as they age, most people reduce their health as they age. But that doesn't have to be us. And if you don't want average outcomes, then you can't behave like the average person. And as a byproduct, you're also going to have to accept that you might stand out a little bit. And people won't like that, and they might question you, or you might stand out a little bit, but that's kind of something that you have to accept, because that will, and actually other people questioning you will probably lead you to question yourself a little bit too, which is one of the reasons that having the right support system around you, knowing what your goals are, knowing what's most important to you, having other people that have like embraced this fuck average mindset, I want to get more from life, which is why I'm so grateful for the Commit to Six community, and why I talk so much about this, because I want to attract other people like that. Like, having those people around you is one of the most important things. This is a quote that I read a few years ago and like struck a chord with me. So it says, I've actually adapted this quote. I'm going to tell you why, because some of it I didn't fully agree with, but most people do what quote unquote most people do. And this is a huge mistake, because as an example, in America, 60% of the population is obese or overweight, which kind of shows that what most people are doing isn't working. So you have to do things differently. And it's so easy to follow the norm, and it's so easy to follow these trends. Now, I took out some of the stats on this because it also says that 50% of marriages end in divorce, and that 70% of people have less than $1,000 in savings. The reason I took them out is because, one, divorce can be a fucking great thing. And two, poverty is also a real thing. And although I would argue that potentially a large percentage of that is due to financial illiteracy and the fact that we're not taught very much about our finances and how to save money and what we should be doing with money, and what investing is and saving is. But anyway, I could go off on a tangent on that for another day, but that's why I took those out. But my point being, like, if you don't want those average stats, then you can't behave like the average person. And I wrote these fuck average commandments, but I then put it in commit 6 and I was like, guys, what would you add? And there was 33 more that people added. So what I'm going to do is send it out as a resource, because I wasn't going to go through them all here. And I've also gone way over the time that I thought I was going to talk for. But if you want the resource that basically our fuck average mentality legends and commit 6 have kind of written, that I've now curated and put into a nice resource, you can message me at ESG Fitness on Instagram after this, and I will send you all of it. And then you can read it, and then you can whisper to yourself, you're not average. Whenever you need a bit of motivation, like whenever I need a bit of motivation, I'm like, oh, it's cold and it's dark and I don't want to get up in the morning, or I can't be bothered to do this last set or these last reps, or I don't know if I could actually do that, or I don't know, whatever I'm thinking, whatever like shitty negative narrative I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, fuck average. And then I just do it. Okay, now I want to just tell you a little bit about Commit 6 before we get to the Q&A. So any questions, get them fired in. So I want to invite you to this intake of Commit 6. You will get the usual incredible coaching, but this intake, you're also going to get access to the new Mindset Shift course, some of which I've given a little bit away here, but there's so much more to it. And actually, that's just a bit of an intro, but there's all of these have very, very clear practical applications. Most of you here probably know me fairly well, and I know that I absolutely hate like wishy-washy mindset woo-woo stuff with like no tangible action behind it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's all cool, but like, what do we do, right? So all of this is like the theory, but also the application, and they're short and they're sharp. And I believe that the best way to change is to couple theoretical mindset, psychological change with actually taking action. Otherwise, you risk procrastinating by just overthinking and actually kind of making things worse and never actually getting anything done. So this is why this framework works. There's weekly lessons with action points that I want you to implement immediately. You will be given frameworks, pep talks, and like challenges throughout. I already said action points, but action points throughout. And I've broken this down into key topics. So today I just kind of like gave you a bit of an intro into like life synergy and the fuck average mindset. But these are all the topics that we're going to go through. So limiting beliefs and fear of failure, perfectionism and imperfect action, obviously, overwhelm, which is going to include things like time management, when actually what I prefer is to term it like self-management, because we all have time, but we also need to manage ourselves and our energy and how that's going to slot in. Backing yourself. So someone actually suggested learning to love yourself, but I think this is kind of more appropriate. It's like, I'm backing myself. I actually want the best for myself. That's a shift in your mindset, right? And it does come from loving yourself. And then we're also going to go through building confidence. And one of my favorite parts that I've been writing is making your life more positive, because I honestly don't think there's that much more important than that, but they have very clear, actionable points to go with them. And yeah, my aim is for you to leave here happier, healthier, more positive, more productive, more successful, and enjoying your life more. And I truly believe that this is the impact that this can have. So I'm very excited about this. You can find out more information by heading to esgfitness.co.uk/commit, or just going to that QR code. The other thing that will be on that QR code is an application form. If you're like, oh, this sounds good, but I'm not quite sure it's for me, fill in the application form. It comes straight to my email and I will email you and we can chat about any questions that you have. Okay, right. I'm going to go through the questions here. You need to do the mindset prep now. Oh, okay. Bye, Tony. Okay. How does hopelessness and lack of motivation that can come with depression linked to procrastination, would you say it's still possible to override this? Yeah, we just need to break down the barrier. Now, obviously, I would hope that you're getting like external support for that as well. But one of the absolute best things you can do for depression is to start doing the basics, looking after yourself. And that's not to say this is a replacement for therapy or medication, but I also think sometimes people put too much of a barrier up to like, oh, as soon as someone has a diagnosis of something, I can't work with them. Yes, like the best thing you can be doing is getting in a routine with exercise. And there's a ton of research to support that. That's not just me being like, I'm a personal trainer, so I think exercise cures everything. No, there's a huge amount of research that if you're eating well, if you're fueling yourself, if you're getting better sleep, if you're exercising, like this will have a huge impact. Now, I know that it's hard because where you're probably at the moment is I feel pretty low. I feel pretty shit. I mean, literally, I'm depressed. So I lack motivation. And it's very hard to get started when you lack motivation, which is why I'm saying we need to lower the barrier to entry. So it might just be like, you're going to start with doing a bit of a morning routine every morning. And I'm not going to lie to you, you won't want to do it for the first couple of mornings. But then you're going to slowly start to feel a little bit better. And that motivation is going to come because motivation actually comes from taking action. And once you start to get a little bit more motivated and you have a bit more energy, then you can start to add in workouts. And then you might start to look at your diet and eat a little bit healthier and go out for walks. And like, then all these things start to improve. So yes, you absolutely can do this. And if you need any help with anything, feel free to shoot me a message afterwards. Lauren, you legend. So excited, tired of procrastinating and not another festive season moving me further away. Yes. Emma, you are absolutely brilliant. Oh, thanks. Love all the positive mindset framework. Is there a book and or podcast aside from yours you'd recommend that aligns with your belief you've talked about today for people that don't like self-help books? For people that don't like self-help, like, is there a self-help book for people that don't like self-help books? What I am going to do is share. I actually have started writing this. I've got a little notes tab because it's going to be a part of this, but I'm more than happy to share it with everyone. It's just my kind of like top books. Off the top of my head, The Happiness Advantage, Master of Change. One I'm reading at the moment, which I have to say, if anyone else is like a little bit heartbroken at the moment, this is a great one. It's called, oh, I shared it. The Mountain Is You. It's very, very good. Self-sabotage into self-mastery. So there you go. There are a few, but I'm going to do a little list. 2 years of Commit 6 committed. I've had the most amazing support from Emma and the coaches, and there's no better community to me in. We couldn't love you anymore. So excited. Commit 6 sounds so good and so worth it. Random question. How detrimental is it not to eat after a short run, 3 to 4 miles, until a few hours later, if not hungry? Say today I ran at 8, had porridge and fruit and Greek yogurt at 11 for an early lunch brunch. So you ran at 8 and then you wait till 11. It's not the end of the world, to be honest. Like, I think a lot of people overplay this a little bit. Like, let's be real, Emma. Is it ideal? Like, especially if you've fasted all night and then you've gone for a run and then you're not eating for a few hours later, like, is it my ideal situation? No. Is it gonna like fuck you up? Also no. Like, it's not gonna have that big an impact. Now, I say that under the caveat of if it does, and you're like, oh, and then I feel really weak after for a few hours until I eat, go and eat some food, right? Or if you're like, I've got a muscle building goal, I'd be like, that's not great. You're running fasted, and then you've got, a few hours until you're eating. Then I probably wouldn't be doing that. But yeah, like I think some people really, they're like, oh, this is the worst thing you could possibly do. It's not. You'll be absolutely fine. Don't worry. I need this. I'm now describing my procrastination as terminal. Right. Well, you're my challenge. So let's go. Let's do this. In the mindset pre-work, I couldn't see anything on values. Have I missed something? All this is new. Nobody's seen any of it. So the other thing that we do on Commit to 6, because I believe that the way that you approach your diet has such a huge impact on how effective it is. And again, we want this to be the last diet that you ever do. So we get you to approach it in a positive way, in a positive mindset, right? So we always do, when you sign up to Commit to 6, you get your mindset prep, which is a series of podcasts to listen to with action points to do. But this is a completely new course. So this is going to be going out with the new Commit to 6 intake. So no, in answer to your question, you have not missed anything. Does the fuck average vibe probably sometimes make you feel somewhat isolated? I have my own routines, like waking up daily, exercising, walking on my walking pad at work, not drinking, etc. And sometimes I feel like a weirdo. Yeah, that's exactly why you need to surround yourself with other fuck average legends on Commit to 6, and then you don't feel like a weirdo. But the other thing that I remind myself of with that is like, cool, that's what the average person's doing. Like, I might hang around people and I'm like, oh, they're going out all night and like being hungover on a weekend or whatever. I'm like, but do I want the life that they have? Do I want the results that they have? Like, I might be, I don't know, working on a Saturday morning because I've decided to, but I'm like, that's how I want to spend my time, because I have completely different goals to what they have. And if I want to achieve those goals, I'm going to have to live my life in a different way. So you do also have to accept that if you don't want to be the norm, if you don't want to be average, you will have to behave in a different way. Like as an example around Christmas, it's like average people will put on weight over Christmas. That is the norm. Now, if you don't want to be the norm, then you also can't behave like the norm at Christmas, which is massively overeating, right? You have to take both. You can't, and this is a saying we say quite a lot on Commit to 6 as well, a bit of tough love, but you can't get upset about the results you didn't get from the work that you didn't do. Like, there will be work required, which, as I can see, Emma, you already like absolutely you're doing the work. But yeah, I would just come and surround yourself with other weirdos, and then you'll be fine. Right, I'm going to scroll up and see what I missed. What's the Commit to 6 app like? Is it workout app, demos, timed or individual program? You all have an app. We use PT Hub. It's great. You can track your workouts on there. Yeah. And it's not me doing like an exercise class in my living room. It's like programmed workouts in the gym or at home or with dumbbells, whatever kit that you have. I know, Scott, I'm sorry. I don't know why I swear so much now. It's only really with fuck average, because I was thinking like, could I call it puck average? And then I was like, don't know if I can. And then I could call it like never be average. And then I thought, oh, that's too many words. And it just works. It just has to be that way. At 48 and in menopause, I love fuck average. The older I get, the prouder I get. Yes, Kim, you are an absolute legend. I mean, Tony's slightly biased, but thank you for saying Commit to 6 is so awesome. It's important to find your tribe. I'm so grateful I found mine on Commit 6. Emily, we adore you. Right, as a people pleaser, I honestly find it hard to identify my own values. Interesting, and also why you need to do it, because it sounds like you're so, yeah, I guess just maybe your whole life has been about like, how can I please other people, rather than what is it that I actually want. And that's not always an obvious thing. Like when people are like, oh, what is it that you want then? Okay, well, just tell us that. But sometimes it takes a bit of figuring that out and playing that through and leaving it in your subconscious and being like, okay, these are the values that have come up for me, but like, are they still the same next week when I think about it? Like, are those ones that actually I think other people would be happy with, but it's not really how I want to spend my life? And if you're a, really hard, by the way, I think everyone is a people pleaser unless you're like a psychopath. Like, everybody wants to be pleased. Sorry, everyone wants to please people and be pleased, to be fair. But there are people who are like far further on that extreme, and they do it to their own detriment, and that's not healthy. So yeah, have a think about that and shoot me a message if you have any questions. can we join Commit to 6 just for the mindset nutrition stuff rather than the workouts? Yeah, loads of people do their own workouts. We've got CrossFitters, we've got High Rocks people. A lot of people join for more of their like relationship with food side or for the mindset side. Especially this round, there are quite a lot of coaches that are actually just joining for more the mindset side, because a lot of this is directly applicable just to building your coaching business or getting out of your own way for whatever your goal is. It doesn't necessarily even have to be a physical goal. I still have a real problem with mornings. What are your top tips for improving them? I get reasonable hours of sleep, but still wake up and do not want to get out of bed. Well, I also wake up and don't want to get out of bed. So I think that's somewhat normal. It does become easier the more that you do it and the more that you get into a routine with it, partly because your circadian rhythm slightly changes. What I will say is it's significantly harder now because it's winter and because it's dark. Like, it's harder to get up in the dark. It's much easier when it's light. Little things like those, I don't actually use this, but you get these lights that you can set an alarm on and they'll like kind of wake you up to the light, and they get brighter and brighter as if you set your alarm for like 6 a.m, it will like start getting lighter at like, I don't know, 5:30, and then by 6 you're kind of like, oh, okay, I'm kind of awake. So one part of me is like, it will probably always be hard. Another consideration is that you do also have your own like chronobiology. So when people are like, oh, I'm a night owl, like that could actually be true. Some people are predisposed to, being more awake in the evening and less awake in the morning. I'm definitely more predisposed to being more awake in the morning and like less awake in the evening. But you can change, like you can train yourself somewhat out of that. So that might be your kind of like initial preset, much like my initial preset was to be quite like reactive and responsive and not particularly positive. And then I trained my brain to see more of the positives in my life, to be more grateful. Like that's what gratitude practice is all about. And by the way, anyone who's tried gratitude and is like, meh, seems a bit like bullshit, wishy-washy to me. That was me for like years and years and years, until I realized what the process of it was and what the point of it was. So when people are like, why don't you just write down 3 things that you're grateful for every day? I was like, why? That's like, I don't get it. Like, what's the tangible outcome here? Like, why am I doing this? And then when I realized, it starts to reprogram your brain to look for positive things. And after a while, you don't have to do that really boring thing of like trying to write down 3 things that you're grateful for every day, because you just feel them. They just come to you and you're just grateful all the time. And you start to actively look for grateful things or positive things, as opposed to like being preset to always look for negatives. And then you naturally become like a more positive person. But it takes like conscious and kind of like a bit awkward and mundane effort initially. But if you understand why you're doing it, then that helps the motivation for doing it. Looking forward to exploring more of the Commit 6 work and potentially treating myself for Christmas. Oh, it'd be a very good Christmas present, Natalie, I have to say. But seriously, if anyone's in this kind of mindset of like, oh, it looks good, but I'm not really sure, have a chat to me. Fill in the application form at esgfitness.co.uk. It comes to my email, nobody else's. It's me that you get to talk to. If it's not the right fit for you, I genuinely won't let you sign up. Like, we have the most amazing community. We've already got, I think at the moment, quite a few signups on this call. So we've already got 92 people that are signing up for the next round. Like, we're not in a scarcity position. I'm not just trying to get everyone to sign up. I want people that align with this mindset. I want people that are going to support each other, help each other, that are of that fuck average mentality, that want more from life. Like, those are the kind of people I want to attract. And if I think it's not the right fit for you, or if I think maybe you've got something that you're struggling with at the moment that someone else might be able to help you with more, I will refer you to them. So definitely worth having a chat. Did the first Commit to 6 workouts today, push, upper and all supersets. Love it. Can't wait to see what happens in the next 6 weeks with great group and support. Couldn't do a push up at the start, had a bad shoulder, lack of training. Clearly the consistency over the 6 weeks is working, as I did a superset with 10, 6, 8, 4, 2 today. That is a killer superset, have to say. Quite enjoyed that one myself. Did write it myself. Well done. And that is freaking amazing. From not doing any to be able to do 10, 8, 6, 4, 2 full press ups is pretty incredible. Well done. All right, great. How many? I mean, I've probably missed quite a lot, and I'm very sorry if I have. Kim, that's why I think the accountability can help via commit. Sometimes we make ourselves do it, but we are accountable to someone else. It can give us a shove along. Yeah, definitely on the days you don't feel like doing it. I procrastinate with my uni assignments all the time, then end up in a last minute rush. Classic. But this is the thing, right? Like, it's not so bad with a uni assignment or something that's got like a deadline, like, because you're going to have to get it done. You know, like I had to get this presentation finished before this. So it's like, well, I know I'm going to get it done. The scary thing to me is like the stuff that you can put off, because no one's telling you that, like, now you should start taking your life seriously. Now you should start that business. Now you should go and see your parents more. Like, the most important things, no one's telling you there's a deadline to it, which means that you do just put them off forever. Oh, I'll do it next week. I'll do it next time. I'll join the next commit to 6. I'll do it. And then you actually never start. And that's what I really like about that really like triggering quote by Ryan Holiday. It's like, what makes you think that in the future you're going to have the discipline to do it? Because you don't have the discipline now. Like, oh, that I'm like, oh, but I also clearly quite like enjoy tough love. I've had an email already with mindset prep 1 and 2. Do I do that now before the start of the next round, or wait until next week? Have we started? We start on Monday, so you've not missed anything. And yes, get that mindset stuff done. Get it in your head. I want to be in your head, in your ears before we start. So that you're going to start in the exact right mindset and say, this is going to be the last diet that you ever do, and you're going to feel freaking awesome. All right. I'm going to wrap that up here. Thank you again, everyone, for your time and attention. I'm so buzzing how many people came and how many people stayed live. And yeah, I'm really excited for this intake of Commit to 6. The most excited I've been in a very, very long time, because I've honestly put like my heart and soul into building this course. And I think it's going to have such a good impact on people and such a big impact on people. So yeah, very excited. Important things don't have a deadline. I got really inspired by this and started organizing my day and my partner's wedding for next summer. Oh, how exciting! That's amazing. Okay, brilliant. Thank you all. Have amazing evenings.